Daftaboutcraft, the craft beer podcast.
It's that time again. Welcome to episode 43 of Daftaboutcraft, the craft beer podcast, with me, Dave D.
And me, Dave B.
What have we got?
Yes, belated Easter treats for everyone, hopefully.
Oh, nice.
Starting with someone that you have had quite a few dealings with, and indeed they featured on a previous brew to me for yourself, and that is Wensleydale Brewing Company.
Indeed, yes, in North Yorkshire.
Yes, which I was in fairly recently, actually, and did have one of their beers on cask and enjoyed it very much. But we're going to have plenty more beers, I believe, to decide from and deliberate with Miles.
He's their media man. He sort of retired a few years ago and then came back thinking he'd just do a little bit of media on the side, and has got fully dragged into Wensleydale, and now he's not semi-retired anymore. So Miles will give us a full lowdown on Wensleydale. We've got a very interesting announcement coming up as we reveal our new sponsor, which will come as well with a discount code for you guys to order. And there'll be discount codes coming up on future episodes regularly as well. So you'll be able to benefit from being a listener to Daftaboutcraft with our new sponsor by getting discounted beers.
Also, you can't seem to move without tripping over a can of it at the moment. We asked if you wanted us to review it. People said they did.
We desperately hoped you wouldn't, but you wanted us to.
Now, we do have to try and be as impartial as possible. So we are reviewing Chubbles. We've got the first two. So we've got the original and Chubbles. And they will, of course, be featuring in Hype or Tripe.
Yes, we asked you, and you voted about 65% in favour of us reviewing these beers. So, yeah, we're true to our word. We're going to do it, and we will go in with an open mind. Now, we've also got Tried and Tested. We've got The Brewer's Wife, where we sample our own beer. The Daftaboutcraft collaboration with Copper Beach and the Oil Basin in Worcester. And a discount code there again for you. We're full of discount codes this time. So if you want to get hold of our beer Gloop, you can do. Listen out for that. We're going to start, as we always do, with Brew to Me. Right then, Dave, what have you got?
Technically, this beer now isn't a brew to me in the sense I have never had the brewery before, only because I had them first when I was away in North Yorkshire, which was between episodes. Not only did I get to sample the beers, but I got to meet the brewer, and we met in a car park, and he gave me some beer in exchange for money.
I just hope somebody witnessed all this. Imagine there's some sort of CCTV monitoring you somewhere, and you got you on a motorway car park in the dead of night exchanging canisters of something.
Sorry to ruin that sort of illusion. It was like 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, so it was really busy and all very above board. But I am talking about Bayonet Brewing. Alex, who brews from Catterick, and Alex is in the military, hence the Bayonet. The beer I'm having of his is the only dark beer that I got from him when I did my little order, and that is an oatmeal porter. And I'm interested to see what this will be like, because I could have done one of the pails, and I've had all of the pails that I did get off him, which is good sign in itself that I've gone through them. But I thought, no, I'll see what he can do with dark beer as well. So I've got Night Nav, which is an oatmeal porter, 5.8%. First thing, I'm really glad that I've opened the can quite carefully, because full to the brim doesn't even begin to describe it. Not much of a head from the port. It's the fizzy bubble one. Doesn't look the thickest, but it's a porter, so I shouldn't expect it to be the thickest in some ways. It says it is showcasing a balanced grist of chocolatey malt with coffee notes. This porter comes in at 5.8%, which is just about the chances of you getting out of the woods without checking your phone. Oh, I see. And the can art actually is sort of a night vision-y thing. And it does exactly what it says on the tin. It's chocolatey and it's malty.
I'll tell you what, should we hand over to Alex to give us the lowdown on the brewery, let that porter warm up a little bit, then come back, let us know what that's doing, and tell us about the pails.
Hi there, my name's Alex. I'm the owner and brewer at Bayonet Brewing, based in Northallerton in North Yorkshire. We launched the brewery in October 2021, so we've only been on the scene for 18 months or so now, but things are going really well. You'll see our beer around quite a bit, which we'll talk about shortly. The brewery itself, the branding is all heavily military focused. The name Bayonet, certainly, but the beer names all have that sort of military-ism to them. So the whole point of it is someone who has served or is in the military or even got some sort of connection can look at the names, laugh and think, oh, I know what that is, and it sort of leans into that. But at the same time, they're obscure enough that anyone who's into craft beer can have a look at that and say, oh, well, it's just another stupid craft beer name. But we mostly focus on hop-forward pales, IPAs, stouts, that sort of stuff. But we've got a lot of different styles coming out soon, which we'll talk about. I mentioned it before, but we're quite a small brewery. We're on a 2.5 barrel kit at the moment, working off some 1 barrel fermenters, in the process of trying to upscale that to basically up our capacity. We've got a lot of demand. We're struggling to meet that demand. So as soon as we can get that kit in, it's certainly going to make life a lot easier. You'll mostly find us in regional outlets in the North Yorkshire, North East area. Nationally, it's starting to pick up quite a bit as well. So there's a lot of word of mouth spreading out there as you get in craft beer. So you'll see our beer all the way down to Hertfordshire and beyond, which is really great. Like I said, we're working on that expansion, so hopefully as soon as that comes in, we'll be able to get our beer a little bit further away. The beer you're drinking today, Night Nav, which is a 5.8% oatmeal porter. So it was actually our first beer. So when we launched, I was reading a book about the Lagunitas beer out in the States, and they recommended always brewing a dark beer to start with. So we thought, all right, we need to start this off. Pushed out a 5% oatmeal porter that we thought would be easy drinking, but with a lot of flavour to capture people and make them want to drink our beer again, which seems to have worked. So it definitely fit the bill, which is great. It's now a bit of a seasonal launch, so we only brew that when it comes in towards the end of each year, and it always seems to go down a treat. But it's got a really chocolatey malt, quite a thick beer, really nice coffee notes, despite coffee being nowhere near it. But the star of the show is the oatmeal. That really gives you that kick, and it gives you that flavour that everyone would expect from a beer like that. We've got a couple of dark beers on the range at the moment, Night Nav's being one of them, but got another stout as well, and we've got some great plans in the future for some other ones. We've actually got a lot of collabs coming up over the course of the next few weeks, so keep an eye on the socials because there are some pretty awesome beers coming out, not just your usual ones, but we've got the big hitting dippers and Westies and things like that, but some other pretty interesting ones you want to keep an eye on. If you're out on events, you'll catch us some beer festivals. We're at Crafty Dogs Beer Festival in Ilkley, which has got some amazing people there, but also going to be a Black Sheep and a few other ones as well. So we've got a lot going on, which we're really excited about. If you're interested in trying some Bayonet beer, jump on our web shop, bayonetbrewing.co.uk. Also follow our socials, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all the usual places. But at the end of the day, if you want beer in your local bottle shop or anywhere else, just get them to contact us. We ship nationally because we're really big on supporting those other small businesses. Huge thanks for having us on Brew to Me. It really does mean a lot. We listen to the pod all the time, and to be on it is fantastic for us, and we look forward to coming on again in the future. Cheers, guys.
Well, there you go. That's a very concise lowdown on Bayonet. Really interesting stuff there.
Yeah, he's very good, isn't he, Alex? And he's ever so keen to kick on. And while it won't happen instantaneously, I did ask him when we met up. I said, "Oh, would you like to get bigger?" Because we've had plenty of breweries we've talked to that said, "Oh no, quite happy in our lane."
Yeah.
I said, "Oh, would you like to get bigger? So this is a full-time job." And without missing a beat, he went, "Yep." So he's very keen to kick on with it. And some of the beers he's got, I would say, will definitely not slow him down from achieving that, because I think a lot of people will want them. I got to have some on tap in Northallerton, which is one of the sort of towns nearby to Catterick. They were very good. So far now, I've had a good half a dozen of Alex's beers, and I would say the two that really stood out. One is Delta Lima 6, which is DL6, which is Northallerton postcode, and that's a very easy drinking 4% pale. That was really nice. Drank a lot heavier than the ABV, and he says you will get some notes of peach. And I actually got peach, which I was very impressed with, because you know how hard a flavour that is to get through a pale. And the other beer, the one that was probably my favourite, is Millionaire's Weekend, which is New England, 6.5%. You'll be surprised at this. Galaxy, Citra, Sabro, and I really liked it. I'm finding I'm coming round to Galaxy now, actually, but
I think what's happened here is that brewers have got used to using these hops that were that really used to knock our socks off and were a bit divisive, and now they're using them really well, because in that hop bill there, that's two of the three hops that we often don't get along with that well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, this was really dank, but it was really thick and it was a great colour. So they were really, really good beers. This porter, I like it. It does exactly what it says. If you like a chocolate and slightly coffee porter, this will tick the boxes. The pales for me, they're the real knockouts so far I've had from Bayonet.
Well, that sort of reflects your personal preference to beers in general, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And if people do want to order from Bayonet, I would say try this as well, because it's worth just seeing. I like seeing how a brewery can do different styles. As I kept going with this porter, it does taste 5.8% actually.
Interesting.
You sort of think of a porter and it's in that 4 to 5 bracket and it can sort of almost be gone before you know it. That is holding together very, very well. Building the longer I'm drinking it in a good way.
It's good that beers do that, isn't it? Been critical in the past of beers fading away to nothing or just being the same all the way down. It is nice when they develop. They don't have to, but if they do, it's just an added dimension to it all, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, that's not doing loads and loads of different things, but it's just holding that body and it's getting a little bit more robust the longer I drink it, which is good. It just slows you down a bit and makes you think about it a bit more. Works well, and definitely try the pales as well. They all work really well too.
Excellent. That's a glowing review for Bayonet there from North Yorkshire. In front of me, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cans. 5 different beers from a little brewery, also in Yorkshire, from Whitby, from Lady Luck Brewery. Now, I've spent quite a lot of time in Whitby over the years. You'll have heard me talk about visits to the Whitby Brewery, which is right in the shadow of Whitby Abbey, and had some nice beers up there. I've never come across these guys' beer for sale in Whitby. I think you have to go to the right place. They're actually based in a micropub in Whitby, in the Angel. So next time I'm there, I will be going to the Angel. But they've just canned their first beers, and these are the set of the beers that they've canned, so never canned any before. Here we go. And now I have a porter as well here, but I'm not going to do that because you did a porter. Then I have a blonde and I have a golden ale, which sound to me more traditional. Then I've got 2 hazy IPAs. Both got Eldorado, then one has got Citra, the other's got Idaho 7. So I'm going to go for the one with Idaho 7.
Oh, good choice.
Just because Citra is everywhere.
Yeah, you sort of know what to get from Citra and Eldorado, I think.
And also, actually, I had some Idaho 7 pellets. I put them in my pocket a few weeks ago when I was doing a little tour of Missing Link Brewery in West Sussex. They got some Idaho 7 hops and smell these, so I did. And I kept the pellets in my pocket all day, and the aroma was intense, so I know what that smells like now firsthand. So let's see what this beer's like.
Do your trousers still smell of Idaho 7?
What is interesting is that the jacket pocket I put them in, I went back to it the other day, so it was about a week later, and the smell had completely gone.
Oh.
Hops fade
Fresh
fast,
hops
Dave.
fade fast, yeah, exactly.
So what we've got here is Hazy Juicy IPA. That's what it's called, from Lady Luck Brewery. Love the can art. It's sort of a scene of Whitby landmarks like the Abbey with seagulls and very seasidey. So this comes in at 6%. And like I say, it's Eldorado and Idaho 7. So what we should be expecting here is a lot of fruit and a bit of bitterness, I reckon.
Oh, it's a nice colour in the glass.
It is.
Orangey tinge.
Yeah, definitely an orangey tinge to it. Tropical fruit flavours are what Eldorado gives, and that is tropical fruit. I thought it might be a bit thicker given the 6%, but that doesn't matter at all. All the flavour is there, with just a little bit of bitterness, not much at all. It's good.
Would you know it was 6%?
Possibly it does taste it's 6%. I think if you motored through that can quite quickly, you'd know about it. Right, let's pass over to Aaron from Lady Luck Brewery, and he can tell you all about what they do up there in Whitby. Then we'll come back and see how this beer's getting on.
Hello, this is Aaron, head brewer from Lady Luck Brewery in Whitby. We are based in the Little Angel, a small nano brewery. And as I mean small, we do 2 casks at a time on our tiny kit. We started the brewery up by me and the owner. I was a glass collector at 16. I moved up onto serving cask. After a few years of doing this, I realised I enjoyed the different types of cask ales we were getting in, and maybe we should have a go at making some. I talked to the owner, Richard, and we bought a brewery off Seba for £1,000. We've changed the kitchen into a brewery, taken us a good year or so. We've got it to exactly where we are happy with it. We decided to create Lady Luck Brewery to really give the pub and us a little bit of inspiration, to really get some beers out there that you don't traditionally see on hand pull. And I think we're doing it really well. We have our 4 core beers at the minute. We have Kraken IPA, which is a 3.9 sessionable beer. We rammed it full of big American hops, Amarillo, Citra, and Centennial. We then also have our second biggest seller, which is Black Cat. We started doing this originally on Goth Week, and it seems to have taken off as a good, high-standing selling beer. It is a Black Cat Porter, a roast. We got a Rick Super Roast. We use 3.5 kilos per brew of chocolate malt, and we complement that beer with Challenger hop, a good UK hop. It's an absolutely lovely beer. We use quite a bit of oat to make it nice and creamy. I hope you guys like it. Our third bestseller is Shipwreck Blonde. This one, we went a bit traditional with this one. We did it Citra to make it a bit more nice and easy drinking. It's crisp. We conditioned it for 2 days in the tank, and I think it's a lovely beer. Our fourth biggest one is Pirate's Treasure. We did a collaboration for this beer with a small little pub down Robin's Bay, and we created Pirate's Treasure, which is a lovely 4.2 golden ale with a little bit of lime twist to it. Once or twice a week we will release a special beer just to try and get something different on the handle. I mean, this week we released a 8% super hazy wheat dipper with Idaho and Citra, and we can go from that 1 week and then we end up the next week creating something like a new one, melon it up with loads of melon hops. We've also now started off our canning range. We do the originals and for sale a few specials. We got it up and running, I'd say, about 2 months ago properly. We've just started keg as well. We're kegging now. Our dipper's just gone in, and we've got our standard keg, which is Lost in Idaho 7 Park. If you know the movie, it's a spin-off with Idaho at 4%. And we love it. It's soon to be going in can next week, I believe, as well. That's us at Lady Luck Brewery. I hope this helps you inspire to come to Whitby and try us. We're based in Little Angel. We're happy to see anyone come or tour the brewery or come and try the beers.
Yeah, it's still good, and it still tastes pretty strong, and it still tastes pretty fruity. Sometimes the bitterness can come through in these beers the further down you go. That hasn't happened, and it's nice. Both of these hops can be used, they're dual-purpose hops, so they can be used for aroma or bittering. So I guess they kind of complement each other quite well.
And are these cans available on a web shop or anything, or is it just so new that they're not quite out yet?
I think the intention is that they will be, but not yet. So you've got to look at suppliers and whatnot to find the cans at the moment, or shops in the local area. But it's nice to be on at the first level and try the very first cans from a brewery.
Yeah, and it seems like you're pleased.
Yeah, it's a real fruit punch. It's a bit, when we have a lot of these beers and there's aroma of this and aroma of that and flavour of that, and you're struggling to find it sometimes. You're not struggling to find this, that's there. It's not overwhelming, but you can definitely get those aromas and tastes and flavours that are supposed to be there.
Well, that sounds like sort of mission accomplished then. For both of our beers, I think.
I think so, yeah.
Daftaboutcraft.
Well, it's time for a bit of news now on Daftaboutcraft. You may have noticed on the last few episodes we've not had details of our sponsor because we haven't got one at the moment. But that's about to change because right now we're going to the northeast to talk to Andrew Marsh, who is the man behind Hops at Home, a home delivery beer service, who is going to be our new sponsor. How's it going, Andy?
Well, hello. It's lovely to see your two faces on my screen. It was lovely to hear you. There's dulcet tones, which I'm so used to listening to on the pods. But no, I'm good. It's sunny South Shields in the northeast.
And so you run a business, beer delivery service from your home called Hops at Home. How long's it been going for?
Started October 2020 in the midst of you-know-what. I had a chat about starting a bottle shop with a guy in licensing at the council as well at the time, and his advice was actually you could start this from home because you could get your home license, because I'm based, as you said, at home, but it's in the garage. Get your premises license, get your personal license, get insured, and you're ready to go. So it's been a bit of a whirlwind really since. I wasn't actually going to go forward with the business till probably Christmas in 2020, but our local newspaper up here helpfully put in an article about a licensing application which stated that new business in South Shields will be offering 24/7 beer delivery. It probably worked to my benefit because I'm the type of person that procrastinates a lot, and I would have probably still been tinkering with the website now. And then it equally caused as much uproar on my local estate because people seen the blue notice, which you have to put outside the property to detail the premises application, and people thought it was a pub being set up on my estate, which I said there isn't. But at some point, you can You're welcome to come in the back garden for a few cans if you like.
I could just imagine the uproar.
Yeah, the NIMBY brigade must have been in full force for that.
Yeah. Hilariously, when we bought this house, the lady that we bought it had lived in since it was built in the 60s, and in the deed pack, there's actually a public house planned on the estate, which, of course, I brought up and said, well, actually,
Yeah, absolutely.
dipped into the archives and bring this forward. But no, yeah, so it's coming up 3 years. Well, it'll be 3 years in October. Sort of originally, when I set it up, I had that thought of just maybe sticking to Northeast beers. Actually,
We have found so many breweries through you and your website that we hadn't heard of. I mean, that has been your forte, hasn't it? Showcasing breweries up there in the Northeast.
yeah, many people have heard of probably Almasty, Wylam, Full Circle, 2x2, a lot more now, but there's a lot of small ones. Firebrick are a big favourite of mine. They're based in Gateshead. Quite a small brewery, nationally, locally, really big. And there's some other ones, Rig and Furrow from Northumberland, are absolutely fantastic, based on a farm.
Yeah,
Love Rig and Furrow.
There's a couple of guys sort of in the Borders area who kind of like, can I get their beer? And Theo at Rig and Furrow, the head brewer owner, was just sort of pointed in my website, my direction on my website. But I'm very lucky that these are all on our doorstep, and equally, they're also really helpful. Loads of pointers, loads of information from those guys, and all too willing to help, which is really, really good. I've been lucky enough, I suppose, to be able to branch out and get so much more in. And what I really love about it, the business, is because I get to effectively doorstep people with their deliveries. There's a lot of interaction, of course, and there's one brewery in particular I must say are probably my favourite in the UK is St Mars of the Desert from Sheffield. When this was suggested, this was mooted to me that you should get this brewery in St Mars of the Desert. At that point, I wasn't really getting any Belgian stuff in, so I thought, well, there must be Belgian. Like, I can't branch out to get them in, mainly because the shelf space, getting bottles in, cans are a lot easier to stack. And of course, I just sat down one night and something flashed up on Instagram, St Mars of the Desert, Sheffield. What? Because as soon as I knew that, of course, I had them in, and subsequently I get them in all the time. But again, that was just because of that interaction with people through the business.
And it's not just breweries based in the north you've got beers from all over the UK.
When we first started, probably because of pricing and the budget I had at the time, the likes of Vault City, I would never have considered this stuff because of how expensive I would have to sell it for, because I didn't have the market at the time. But subsequently now, again, I get Vault City in and absolutely love Left-Handed Giant. They're a massive favourite of mine.
We should say that Andy is literally sitting in Aladdin's cave of craft beer.
He's in his beer den.
I am, yeah.
That's why we wanted to sort of have you as a sponsor, because there's not only do you know the brewers a bit, but it is these breweries like Almasty. Still don't see them down my way at all. I don't even think you'd probably see them down your way, do you, Dave?
Not a great amount, to be honest.
No, and that's it. We want to be able to expose those beers a bit more to people, so that's why we sort of thought this would work really well.
I tell you what comes across in this chat, Dave, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I'm going to say, don't you?
Yeah.
Your passion is so similar to ours. We love beer. We love finding new breweries. You love the same thing. So I think what we've got here is we're all on the same page here. We're all on the same wavelength. And hopefully, you're going to help our listeners to discover new beers as we go forward together.
I hope so. Effectively, it's a meeting of minds with us three. I suppose you'd like to think that everybody listens to this your pod would be in the same mindset.
Absolutely.
I think really, because there's such a nice community out there that between us, we're quite lucky to see behind the curtain a little bit with it. But yeah, there's a real unity in the industry, which is really, really nice. And it's the same with the bottle shops and taps. And that's really good to see, because that energy, I think people feed off that. They really do. And when I first started drinking, I didn't feel that because I wasn't immersed in it. But once you are immersed in it and do see that, and actually it was Julie, my wife, she noticed Flash House Brewery in North Shields on Facebook one day. We'll go here. And you know what? Honestly, I don't think I've felt at home as much in a place ever. And I'm a massive Newcastle supporter. When I go to St James's Park, I feel at home. Or when I cross the Tyne, there's just something inside you that wells up. But Flash House have this feeling, and it's the couple that run it, Jack and Milder. And it just have this like beautiful energy in the place. And the beer's not well known, really. Local pubs have it in. They have it on their own, the tap on it in the summer. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And it's just this lovely energy in there, this lovely feeling. And, success of things breeds success with other things, because there's an amazing Mexican restaurant on the Fish Quay in North Shields, which is just down the hill from where they are, which you go past where Sam Fendi used to work, the Low Lights Tavern, which is a really cool pub. There's a lovely Mexican on the front, and that started as a pop-up restaurant just inside Flash House, literally on a table inside the doorway.
Oh, wow.
And it's this beautiful building that they've got now. Inside, it's amazing. The food's even better. And it's just that they've just said, yeah, come in, put a table there. off you go. And because people go to Flash House and trust that brewery because they make great beer, they go, oh, well, yeah, well, I will have this tackle. Oh, that's fantastic. I will have that next week, and I'll come the week after. And we took Joe, Joe's 4 now, when he was a baby. We took him recently with when you little girl Ivy. Just a casual Saturday, we wheeled in, had a pint, wheeled out, and there's people doing the same. Or there's people, it's very different. What I love about it is just the different people, just this lovely mix that you get. You don't get us wrong. You go out in your castle and you'll get groups of lads and groups of lasses, and that's how people drink. But there's something different. There's just something different where you've got loads of crossover age groups. And that, well, it surely means that it won't die craft, which is really good because we don't want that to happen. But you know what I mean? That it's just that lovely little mix. I can't really put your finger on what it is. But
we know exactly what you mean. I tell you what, Dave, we've got to watch out because this guy might start his own podcast. He's that passionate.
I know, very engaging.
You're right. People should know this now. That in the build up to this, I've been saying to you two, I've absolutely been terrified.
Honestly, Andy was so nervous about coming on.
15 cans.
We didn't know whether we were actually going to get him on to talk to. He was that nervous. But look, you played an absolute blinder talking about the scene in your area. And the great news is that on each episode, you're going to be popping up. You tell our listeners.
We're going to definitely have an offer. It might just some weeks be a voucher code, a 10% off, or a couple of free beers. But to start, I'm doing a Northeast box, 12 cans, and they'll all be Northeast brewed beer. And the way I would do it is I would probably have a lager pils style one in there. I'd have a sour, I'd have a stout, and then there would probably be an even amount of IPA and pales. Just depending on what I've got in. 12 cans, 50 quid, and that includes your courier charge, which is usually 8 on orders under 70. 12 beers, all different. I would take out a sour and replace it with a pale if you didn't like sours, or I'll take out a stout. And so I can tailor them a little bit. I like doing it. And this is a bit of a lovely escapism for me. I'm more than happy to please people. That's the thing. But especially when beer's concerned. Just
tell our listeners how many beers you've got in there right now. How many different beers?
I'll count them now. 1, 2. Yes. Well, the website, I think it is about 200.
And if people want to log on to your website and have a look and see exactly what you've got, what are the details?
It's either hydrologycraftbeer.co.uk or hopsathome.co.uk. Obviously, hopsathome.co.uk is a lot easier to remember or to type in. And our socials are generally at hopsathome. I do this ridiculous thing, which I feel like I should tell you this because it just interests me. So I do these things where it's like 10 beers for 40 quid. I pick what beers you have. You can say if you want IPAs, pales, or maybe you do prefer some sours people have in the past. But I keep a record of what people have had. Either you then never get the same beer twice.
Wow, now that is attention to detail. That is.
That is a service. That is.
I like that.
Well, I think this just offers a glimpse of the reason why you're our new sponsor and everything. The passion is there. The attention to detail is there. The range of beers are there. And we'd highly recommend, obviously, given it's a new offer as part of our relationship, to go get this box. You won't be disappointed. We've both had so many beers, thanks to Andy, from the area, haven't we, as we sort of touched on before. And there's so many good beers in the Northeast as well, but it's going to be well worth sort of just dipping your toe in and finding some new breweries.
If you're into finding new breweries, Andy's going to help you along your journey here, because like you said, we've found so many, and you're still finding them as well, Andy, which is great. Look, Andy, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast for the very first time. Listeners, you're going to get used to Andy's voice because he's going to be here on every future episode. He might pop up at any point with an offer for you, and then you can get onto the website, hopsathome.co.uk, and put in your order and hopefully find lots of new breweries you haven't tried before and lots of great beers as well.
You're listening to Dave B. and Dave D. on Daft About Craft, the craft beer podcast.
Right, well, what have we been enjoying drinking since our last episode? So we're going to find out now in Tried and Tested. Dave B, over to you to kick us off.
I've actually had a good amount. I enjoyed myself over Easter. I went to a beer festival, which I can't remember the last time I did that. It's certainly the first one this year. But the beer does not come from a beer festival. Instead, it comes from the Yorkshire trip that obviously has been talked about already on this episode. And it was on a sopping wet day in Richmond that we went to number 29, Ale House and Gin Bar. They only had three cask beers on. They've had camera awards. They've had 3 taps. That was it. 3 cask beers. And you have tapas with it. And food, great. Beer also really good. I made sure to have all 3 beers, and I finished with Three Brothers Brewing Coconut Milk Stout. Now, that is a beer I would hardly ever go for normally, but as I was on holiday and it was the end of the meal, It was my dessert. It is only 4% and it doesn't need to be any stronger. It wasn't sickly sweet, nor was it just all malty. You've got the coconut. And my review that I sort of left of it was, it's like having one of those old school coconut macaroons. The ones where you got the desiccated coconut in the middle and they've drizzled the chocolate over the top.
Yeah.
Nice. And I mean, I don't love coconut as a flavour. I don't love coconut as a flavour in beer. But I really, really liked that beer. Three Brothers, they're Stockton-on-Tees. I've not had any of their stuff before, so it could have easily been a brew to me as well. They've got quite a range looking at it. They cover a lot of styles, so I'd certainly be interested in trying some more of their stuff. And if it's anything like that, I'd be very happy.
Well, I'm also going quite low. My chosen beer is 4.8%, and it was also a cask beer, amazingly. And this is No Time Like Now from Leicester's Mill Hill Brew Co, who actually appeared in your brew to me on our last episode. And then a couple of days later, after the episode came out, I walked into the Coracle in Ironbridge and I saw Mill Hill Brew Co on the pumps in front of me. I thought, got to try this. Oh my goodness, this was possibly the best cask beer I've ever tasted, which sounds like a huge claim, doesn't it? But it was superb. It's full of fruit, really easy to drink, no bitterness, so well balanced. It was ace. They ran out a couple of days later because I was going to go back again and have some more, but I couldn't. But it was just superb.
We've talked about this before, haven't we? Craft on cask. There is a lot to be said for this, because honourable mention for me as well, from the beer festival, probably the best beer I had was from Three Blind Mice, a small New England IPA, 3.7%. That was on cask. Colour, fantastic. Tasted really good as well.
Some of the colours you can get now from cask are just unbelievable. This Mill Hill was vibrant yellow.
Yes.
It looked like it had come straight off keg.
Exactly. You get that lovely rounded flavour, don't you, which cask delivers.
Yes.
No. Yeah, there's a lot to be said for that.
I think a lot of people talk about craft and cask. I think what we need to be saying these days is cask and keg, and you can get craft from either method.
Yes,
it's not just out of a keg that you can get craft beer these days.
And it seems like more brewers are sort of embracing that and sort of popping their beers, and it feels like a lot of pubs now are embracing the idea of perhaps we'll have one of these rather than three really traditional bitters. We'll have something a bit lower on the ABV, but from a craft brewery, and see what they've got.
I've got an honourable mention as well. Actually, I should get in. I spent a few days in Wales and just went to a little pub right in the middle of nowhere, and they'd got a lot of cask stuff and traditional stuff, but they also got one line which they reserve for Welsh lagers.
Okay.
And I had Buckskin Czech Pilsner from Wild Horse Brewing Company in Llandudno.
I believe I've had that.
You have, and you actually didn't rate it that highly.
But I had a can of it.
Exactly. And I looked at some other people who checked it in over the time, and they were also rated quite low. But this was on keg, and it was brilliant. I don't even really like lagers, but this was really good. Made me wonder if they'd perhaps tweaked the recipe over the last year or two.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Yeah, really good. That was Buckskin from Wild Horse.
Daft About Craft, the craft beer podcast.
So a few months ago on Daft About Craft, on our Brew to Me section, I tried a beer from Wensleydale Brewery and was blown away by it. It was really good. And we've been watching them on the socials ever since, and we thought it's time to get them on. So welcome to the pod, Miles Laprelle, sales and marketing guru from Wensleydale Brewery.
How are you two? Good?
We're good. We're really happy because we should just fill the listeners in a little bit that you were kind enough to send us both some beers down. And we thought they weren't going to arrive today, so we sort of rescheduled our meeting, and then they just arrived, so we've scheduled it again. Anyway, we're all here, we're all present and correct, we've all got beer. Well, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself to start with, and what your role at Wensleydale is?
Okay. Well, Wensleydale Brewery started 20 years ago, running out of a pub called the Foresters in Carlton in Coverdale. The guy who had the pub when he was brewing beer for the pub, basically. And the bits he had left, he was selling on. The two lads who own the brewery now went working with him straight from school. So at 18, 19, they went working for him, did a couple of years. And then the guy just said, I'm getting older. I've kind of had enough, and it's time to move on. In that time, they'd moved to Bellaby, into a farm barn. So the guys had a decision at 21 years old. They had a decision to either get a proper job or buy the brewery. Fortunately, they bought the brewery. So they emptied the piggy banks and went to see some local helpers who helped them with a few quid. And and bought the brewery. So that's 11 years ago. It's 10 and a half. We're having a 10th anniversary bash, so it's about 10 and a half years ago. About 5 years ago, they moved to a new brewery because they were to capacity, and brewing on a farm in a barn, everything on top of each other, especially these days with health and safety and all that kind of thing, it wasn't ideal. So they moved to a purpose-built brewery down in Leyburn, which is only about 3 miles from where they started and about a mile from where the previous brewery was. At that time, I just sold a couple of businesses and I was kind of doing a little bit of semi-retirement. And I'd been selling their beer. I opened a record shop with a bar in it in Skipton called the Sound Bar. And I'd had their beers and they got, and I'd had them in a pub beforehand. So, and I was living here at the time, so I knew the boys quite well. So they came to me and just said, but we're moving into this new brewery, double the size. We need to fill it now. So come and do some work. So I hummed and hard and said I'd do a day a week, and here we are, 4.5 days a week, and moving on. So that's where we are at the moment.
Once you've got that craft beer bug, you can't break away from it, can you? Look, you've tried to retire and you've been pulled back into a full-time job by the sounds of it.
I always get a little bit confused with the label craft beer because I kind of don't understand exactly what it is. Everybody has a different thought process on what that actually is. I just believe that every beer that's brewed with love and care is a craft beer, whether it be in a can, on cask, or, out of a bottle, or whatever it may be.
It's really interesting you should say that, because this is something me and Dave have talked about, what constitutes craft, and just because it comes out of a cask doesn't mean it can't be craft. Anything that is crafted with care is craft, isn't it?
That's kind of my thoughts, and that's where we go. I mean, our business is 90% cask beer. We started doing cans during the COVID lockdown. We always did bottles. And we just, as it sounds, you've got to diversify. We have to do something else through the lockdown. So we started doing the cans. And I think you had the high fives previously, which was our first can effort, if you like. But also we were moving our cask sales on quite a way. And we wanted to do some very different things. We wanted to do specials all the time instead of just having a core range. We want to do a lot more specials. So during lockdown, we took on another brewer, which I know it sounds really stupid, and it probably might have been. Fortunately, it's worked. So there's Jeff and Carl who own the brewery, and during lockdown, when things were at its quietest, there's a brewer here came available, and it's somebody we wanted. He was the right age. He'd had full training at Black Sheep previously, but he wanted to do things more his own way, and it was exactly what we were wanting to do. So we brought Nick in during lockdown to really focus on not just weird and wacky and wild things, but just to make really good specials, one-offs, things that we could sell once. When it's gone, and move on. And that's what we do. So we have a new special every single week, at least one.
That's something going.
It takes some doing. It takes some production planning for the boys, but it also keeps things interesting. We're using new hops all the time. We're using hops we haven't heard of sometimes, researching them and testing them. And you just have a go. And you know what we do? We're an 11-barrel plant, 12-barrel. So we do 45 nines at a brew, if you like. That's pretty much what we get out. And on top of the core range, we sell usually 1 or 2 specials out every week. Yeah, it's been good for us. But it also gives us chance to do things that we can't do on core range in the Yorkshire Ales. It's given us an opportunity to get into places that we wouldn't get before, because some of the core range isn't quite what some of the bars in centre of York, Leeds, Newcastle are looking for.
Yeah, you're sort of now straddling both. That was the thing that I was really interested with yourselves, because in the 10.5 years that Jeff and Carla will have owned it, a lot has happened. Obviously, the scene has changed immensely. And we've sort of seen plenty of traditional breweries in the sense that, they were around before craft beer sort of became what it is now. It sometimes feels like they're paying lip service to it. We're going to do something, but we're not really that committed to it. We feel we've probably got to do something, but it seems like you've embraced that, yet also still doing all the casks, so you're getting the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I mean, what it's done, but it's given the breweries, it's given them a real sense of freedom, because yes, we can brew Semi-Water and Gamekeeper all the time, and we sell a lot of it, and it's great. But we can go now into places, and we're very happy to stand alongside some of who I class as the great modern brewers, Cloudwater, Verdant, people like that, Vocation and people. We're very happy to put our beer against theirs. They're brilliant beers. I'm very happy to go into some trendy bars in the centre of Leeds and say, I think our beer stands up against that very well on your bar.
Absolutely. Bring it on. And it does stand up.
This is the first can I've ever had of one of your beers. Dave put me onto them, and I was saying about it earlier on this episode that I had one of your beers on cask in Richmond, and I had Slow Down. Really enjoyed that. Definitely had traditional roots, and now I'm drinking a single hop Mosaic Hazy IPA from yourselves in a can, completely different, still really good. So,
and can you believe, having tasted those two, that they are from the same brewery?
Exactly. That's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
It's an impressive feat that your brewers are able to be putting out stuff at both ends of the spectrum to such a good standard.
What we usually find is that a brewery will excel either with the traditional stuff or with the modern beers.
Yeah.
To get a brewery who can do both well, from our experience, is quite rare.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think that's where the lads who own it were quite brave, bringing Nick on board, who's the third brewer. Because, he does have experience with a little bit different things. And they were saying, well, look, okay, we know we can do this well. To be able to do that well, let's bring somebody in who can do it. And because he came available in lockdown, it was a really brave move. And hats off to them. And he's got some great ideas. And we've just done a collaboration beer with Wild Horse in Wales, who are a fantastic brewery.
They are, yeah.
And they're great. And they came up to see us a couple of weeks ago. We've been in contact with them for quite a while, and we swapped cans with them and this, that, and the other. And they came up and we did a collab beer, which is out on Monday. It's all cask, which isn't really their thing, to be honest. They're more into kegs and can. But we're doing this one on cask, and it's just a 4.2 hazy called Wild in the Dales, obviously with Wild Horse and the Dales. And then we're going to go down later in the year and do one down there, and we'll do that one on keg. And that's been brilliant to do, because we respect these guys, and for them to want to come and do it with us. Brilliant.
It says a lot as well for Jeff and Carl. You say it's sort of brave, but it's nice because I think it feels like a lot of times with breweries, especially when it's on the smaller scale and it's the baby and everything, relinquishing a bit of control or saying, you know what, perhaps we can't actually do everything ourselves as much as we'd love to. Let's get someone in who can do this bit as well. That takes a bit of doing because not everyone can do that.
And I tell you what, to take on a brewer during lockdown when most people were laying everybody off and thinking, what are we going to do? Wow, that's some going, that is.
Well, it is, but, I can't pretend it's always been easy because it is their baby. And I wanted to push into certain areas and do certain things and change marketing. And it's their baby, and sometimes it's been a little bit of an uphill struggle to really prove myself first and prove to them that it works. Marketing is one of those things you can't quantify. It's very difficult to say that sale has certainly come because of this bit of marketing we did. It's just nearly impossible to prove. So they've got to trust me enough to go with it, and they did.
So we should say that we're all drinking beer at the moment, and you've just had two recently released beers, and that's what we're drinking here. Do you want to tell us about those? Yeah,
well, this was Nick's idea. He wanted to do something to absolutely showcase two of the world's greatest hops, in our humble opinion. Mosaic and Citra, which is what you want is Mosaic hop, and what you need is Citra hop. They're both the same beers, just with different hops. And it was done on purpose to say, right, we know we can produce beer. Let's absolutely showcase two of the kings of the hop world. And that's what we've done. So they're both 5.3, both hazy pales. One's a pure Mosaic, one's a pure Citra, but they taste so different.
These days, people are always looking for the next hop combination and with different spins on everything. You don't find that many single hop beers out there these days.
And that's precisely why Nick wanted to do this. Because we've messed about. I mean, if you look at the high fives we do, it's got 4 New Zealand hops in New Zealand IPA. Yeah. So we're mixing the hops. And he said, you know what, we do this all the time. And the specials we're doing, we're mixing hops and hoping they work together. We're pretty sure they will, but, and then putting some things that we know will work. And he says, I just want to really showcase these two hops. So Carl and Jeff says, great, go do it.
And also, when you're just involving one hop, if you mess this up, you're not hiding behind lots of other flavours and stuff. This is one hop, and you've got to make this beer work.
Not only that, Mosaic and Citra, two of the hops that everybody knows what they taste like.
Exactly.
And if you get it wrong, you've really got it wrong. Now, you two guys are drinking. I don't know which one you're drinking at the moment.
What have you got there, Dave?
So I'm drinking What You Want, which is Mosaic.
Yeah.
My two big takeaways from this beer are I don't often see a Mosaic beer this colour. I would think of it as going more to the orangey colour. It's paler than I normally expect, which is nice. And the other thing is it's one of the subtlest juices of Mosaic. That's not to say it's watery, but I know what I expect from a Mosaic beer. All the sort of bitterness on the back end and that. Don't get that nearly as much. It's really toned down. Makes it way more sessionable than you'd think for 5.3. I would think this could be 4.5 very easily. And that's a compliment, not a criticism.
I totally go with that, Dave. I think the idea is we don't want to knock people's head off. You've seen it in the wine world with New World wines, and they full in your face and knock your head off. But people still like the old world wines that are subtle and a little bit more about them. And I think this is exactly what you say. I think it's got a beautiful flavour, but it's not knocking your head off, which is kind of what we want. The colour comes from, because we've used a lot of T90 hop, which is the pellets as opposed to leaf, the back end, which is slightly, it makes it a little bit harder to brew, I'm led to believe. Remember, I'm not a brewer, but I do watch them do what they do. It is apparently a little bit harder to do and to get it absolutely right. But they wanted to do it on purpose, and it's the T90 hop that just tones that edge down a bit, and I think it's worked really well.
So what do you make of your one, Dave?
Right, so the beer that I've got is the single hop Citra. This is called What You Need. Again, it's 5.3%. I said this before on the podcast, I don't drink quickly by any means. All that's left of the 440ml can is that little bit there. So hardly at the bottom of the glass. Very, very drinkable. Again, doesn't taste its 5.3%. Could easily be 4%. Very little bitterness. Nice little bit of fruit. If you were sitting in the sunshine and you've got sort of 4 of those in front of you, they're not going to last long.
Well, unfortunately, it's only my local pub at the moment, so that's a bit of a concern. Tomorrow night might not be too good.
Well, that leads me on to the question I was going to ask you, actually. How do your older clientele, who are used to having the more traditional beers, how do they get on with this sort of beer?
Some do and some just don't at all. And what's been lovely to watch, I mean, I live in Wensleydale. This is where the brewery is. We're based in Leyburn. We're in Wensleydale. We're in the heart of North Yorkshire. It's not renowned for its pioneering new wave things. That's not what we're about up here. So, you still occasionally see things like John Smith's up here, for God's sake, so that's where we are. But what we have found as the last couple of years have gone on, some of the traditional pubs are putting a pump on that has something a little bit different. And we've got 2 or 3 really pioneering pubs now, very close to us, that are really pushing. There's the Cover Bridge in East Witton. East Witton is probably 300 people live there. It's just outside Midland. He has 8 hand pumps on his bar. He has 2 of ours and then 6 other things. And yes, he does have Black Sheep, Theakston's, etc. But he has things that are, Wild Child and people like that. Brilliant beers. And he sells them. There's King's Head in Leyburn. They'll take every one of our specials, no matter what it is. So they both even put the 10% Imperial Stout on.
What we sort of take from this is that attitudes to beer are changing, and no longer does everybody in a country pub have to drink horrible brown looking muck. Attitudes are changing, which is brilliant to hear.
I think that's right. But I also just think, and I'd be interested to hear what you guys think about this, because you probably know more about it than me and hear more about it. But I'm also finding some of the trendier pubs are really looking for good best bitters all the time. We're finding now we deal with people like, the Golden Ball in York and the Last Drop in York and the Scholars Bar in Scarborough, and they just want a bitter for the bitter pub, a traditional bitter.
The best bitters definitely had a bit of a resurgence in the last 6 to 9 months, I think. It feels like that all of a sudden everyone's been adding one to their range of having a go at one. I don't necessarily think it's been reinvented. I don't think I've had a best bitter which I would be able to pick particularly from a best bitter before, if that makes sense. I think it's just a modern brewery doing a traditional beer.
And I think also it's a little bit there where some of these factory breweries, as I call them, have changed traditional bitters. There isn't that, well, we'll put this hop in because we know it works. Oh, it's a bitter, it doesn't need much hop anyway, don't worry about it. Whereas you find people, the smaller breweries like ourselves, are saying, yeah, it's still really important which hops we put in here.
Yes.
We've got this balance right. And it's nice because some of the bitters now just do have that little bit of hop hit, which they didn't used to. It used to be all brown beer and malt, and now it just has that little bit of hop. And I think it makes a lot of difference.
That's fair, actually. And again, it's probably one of those things where you get the better experience if you're having it off the handful than you will in a can. I don't know that I necessarily think it's a style that lends itself to can, But I think on a handful, that's where the money is.
Yeah, I go with that.
Have you seen a big shift with bottles to cans at all? Are people going more and more can?
It's interesting because during winter, when the holidaymakers are less up here, we sell a lot more bottles. From Easter through to September, we sell a lot more cans. And I think it's a lot of the people in caravans as well.
Yeah.
Because they can store them, because they can stack them in the fridge, you can with bottles. And they're not as heavy to carry home, etc., etc. I think there's a bit of that. But certainly I think it's people coming from further south and other places that are used now to buying cans.
Seasonal by the sounds of it, then.
It really is, yeah. It absolutely is. What we do find, though, is our core range, semi-water, is always our best seller. It's 4.1 pale. It's just a lovely, easily sessionable pale. And that sells no matter what time of year. We sell more of that than everything else put together. We just do.
Just to go back to what you want and what you need, I've cracked on with what you need as well. The difference is noticeable, which is great. I wanted it to be. But again, really soft. I'd say this is a bit fuller. Feels a bit fuller compared to the Mosaic.
But don't you think the Citra hop is a little bit fuller than Mosaic anyway?
Yeah, exactly. And I get a bit more fruit than I do with the Mosaic. And but again, it's that soft finish. That's the consistent thing, which I love. They're both really soft, really drinkable.
And that's exactly what we wanted, because when Nick wanted to brew these, he just said, I don't want to be clever about this. I just want to say, that's Mosaic, that's Citra. You make the choice. And we'll not only that, we'll show you the difference in flavours of the hop.
Do you think that the industry is a bit guilty sometimes of trying to overcomplicate beer?
Again, yes, I do. I think some people do it extremely well. And I think some people brew things purely because they think they should rather than they really want to. I've seen breweries in remote places brewing sours in cans and this, that, and the other. You just think, I'm not sure there's a market for where you're looking, And I think they're brewing it because they feel as though maybe they have to. Or maybe they want to, and he's doing it because that's what the brewer has a passion for. So good on him. Well, if that's the case, then absolutely, hats off. But we haven't done sours. We just don't think we've got a market, especially in this part of the north of England.
I'll buy some if you do some. So you're guaranteed a few sales.
I like it myself, but I have to sell a lot.
That is true. So most of your audience then is it local? How far do your beers get?
Well, this is quite interesting. We were looking at this a short while ago. When I started, which is I've worked there exactly 5 years now, and pretty much we were doing Wensleydale and Wharfdale, and that was pretty much it. And this week alone, we've been everywhere from Doncaster to Newcastle to the East Coast to the Lancashire-Cumbria border and everywhere in between. So the whole of North Yorkshire, the whole of West Yorkshire, just into South Yorkshire, all up the North York Moors and Coast, Teesside and Tyneside. So that's how we've expanded in 5 years.
So the geography has expanded massively then?
Hugely, but we're also pretty keen on trying to make sure we deliver it ourselves, because where we are, I can't compete with some of the big breweries with some of the offers they've got. I've got to give people something else, and that is customer service. I want to make sure it's one of our lads goes into the cellar, and if they want it racking, our lads will rack it, make sure it's there, put on for them, make sure they've got the pump clips, make sure, etc., etc.
The complete service. Wow.
I think it's important. I can't offer 2 for 1s and 3 for 2s. We just can't afford to. Some of the big breweries maybe can, but we just can't. So I've got to offer something else.
So what you focus on is building relationships with those places you're selling to.
Yeah, exactly. I sent an email out on a Friday morning and a Monday morning, and the amount of sales we get just from the email without having to talk to them, because they know now, they trust that the beer we're selling them, that if we say it's a good beer, they tend to trust us nowadays, or our existing customer base do. And they know that, when we get there, if they've gone shopping, we won't just dump it outside the front door. We'll make sure it's hidden round the back, behind the bins or something, leave them a note to say where it is, and you know what I mean? And I think that's kind of important.
3 years ago, maybe, if you talked to a craft brewery, it was like, and the way it was promoted, we're going to take over the world, we're going to take over the UK, we're going to be from north to south everywhere. Increasingly, the more we've done this, the more people we've talked to, and you find, obviously, because the UK is big enough, you can be successful in your local area, and that's enough. You can be a successful local business that can expand to a point and do well. Is that sort of where you guys are? Like, you're happy what you're doing, and it's good, and it's doing what you need it to do, or is there a desire to get really big?
Oh no, we want to get bigger, but we want to do it we want to do it in a way that we can control and make sure we're doing it in a proper way. And some other breweries have done quick expansion very, very successfully. We can all name one or two. And they're producing great beers, and they've gone from nothing to multi-million pound turnover companies. And they're brilliant, absolutely brilliant. The beer's great and everything. But, you know, to do that, you have to have financial backing. You have to do lots and lots of marketing. You have to know where you're focusing and where. That's not our way at all. We're a little bit different. We say, right, okay, we've got to there. How do we get to that next stage? Well, we won't sell another 50 a week. We'll look at that area. How do we service that area if we do it? And then we spend a couple of months finding the pubs in the area we want to deal with, and then we target them.
So what you're talking about is organic growth rather than chucking a load of money, getting a big backer and chucking the money at it.
We have no big backers. The lads have made the money. They borrowed a few grand when they set up, not hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
We are very keen to keep it that way. So we're at capacity at the moment and have been for the last 12 months. We've got another fermentation back going in the next month, which expands us a little bit more, just expands the brewery a little bit more. And we'll continue to grow that way. Yeah. So we'll save the money and buy the bits we need.
And you're always in control of what you're doing then.
Exactly. And that's the way the lads have been brought up. The Dales lads. You know, the proper Yorkshire Dales lads, you know, and it's how they've been brought up and it's what they do. And it's really, really encouraging to see that instead of just saying, well, I'll go to the bank now and borrow £1 million and then we'll do this. They say, no, what we'll do, we'll have 6 months selling this and we'll have enough money to buy these 2 bits of equipment we want.
It's a refreshing approach, isn't it? You know, you don't hear this so often. A lot of people, especially during COVID times, a lot of people had these bounce back loans and all of this at the low interest rates. But you've got to pay all that money back. The interest rate may be low when you took out those loans, but you've still got to pay them back. If you don't owe anything, then you're in a great position.
And I think we've all seen recently, I mean, you look at the list of breweries that have closed down in the last 6 months. And a lot of these, if you look at the breweries, and I'm not going to speak individually because I really, I couldn't possibly do that. But my view would be that a lot of them have a fairly serious overdraft or a debts to pay off. And then when things aren't just great and interest rates go up, they can't meet that payback. And then they have decisions to make. We've never been in that. So through lockdown, we had 2 years or whatever it was, where we didn't make any money, but we didn't lose anything. Because we just made sure we started producing cans, we started doing free local deliveries, we started doing mini kegs and all that kind of thing, and dropping kegs off for people in people's home bars and that kind of thing, which we were allowed to do, and just really went through it like that and did it nice and steadily. And we didn't lay anybody off. We didn't have anybody on furlough. We just kept going all the way through, and that's how we did it.
That is impressive. As we said earlier with hiring a brewer, but being able to do that and not find yourself staring into a black hole of finance. That speaks to how well run the brewery must be.
There's a lot of big businesses out there who were laying staff off in many sectors, let alone your sector.
Without a doubt. And it was because they didn't have big loans to pay back. They could just say, well, as long as we cover the cost for this next month, we can get away with it. To cover that cost, we need to sell that X amount of cans and bottles. And that's what we did. And nobody made any money. We didn't, but we didn't lose anything. So we came out of it quite healthy. We were in a position ready to go. We hadn't stopped brewing. Where a lot of breweries had stopped brewing, and then when they started brewing, they found issues because the brew plant likes to be running. And suddenly they started up, and one or two fairly major breweries suddenly couldn't produce beer.
So back to happier matters, though. We've both enjoyed I certainly have enjoyed what you want and what you need, which are available. But obviously you spoke of the fact that there is an ever-evolving amount of specials. So what can people expect from on a weekly basis, it was I didn't realise it was quite so regular. What's coming up if you've got some highlights?
Well, last year we produced 58 different beers.
So in actual fact, it's more than weekly.
Yeah, well, with four core range. So with four core range, the draw was available. And then we produced more than one a week. So with 58 different beers.
You're like a craft beer nerd's dream because there's always new beers to get.
Can never check them all off.
But you know what? If you run a pub, and say you're tied and you've got 2 spare pumps. So you might have 2 pumps that are tied to a major brewery that you're linked with or whatever, and you have 2 spare pumps. What you want on those pumps is something that nobody's had before.
Yeah, definitely.
To attract people into your pub because they know they can get the 2 mainstays because we've got into a lot of customers purely because we can offer them something different every week. So we can get on one of those pumps nearly every week because there's something new for them. And it's helped us. And also, it's exciting for the lads brewing.
I always think this. Imagine you work in a big brewery and you,
we've talked to people who do it.
Yeah, we have. People who just brew the same beer day in, day out. That must be soul destroying. There's never anything different.
And not only that, it's that excitement. You know, it's a bit like Christmas when a hop comes in you've never used before. But you can see the lads, you know, you suddenly see this little rush towards this pallet that's arrived. And there's 3 brewers and the apprentice, and they're all there, you know, ooh, look at this. It's like playtime.
That's what this is all about, though, isn't it? If you wanted to brew the same beer all the time, you wouldn't be doing what you're doing.
This is where I think craft and cask cross over, because that's the excitement. I think that's every bit as much as doing a sour or something else. This is, you're doing something new with something new, a new product. And we're using new malts, you know, different malts all the time. And it's really interesting what you can do, and different yeasts, and it's just great watching the lads play with it. And they get such a buzz, you know, they really do. So in the next few weeks, you know, I think I sent you a little photograph not long since on WhatsApp.
Yes, you did, yeah.
Of a set of pump clips we have up and coming. And that gets us through till about end of July.
We should just tell our listeners this picture that Miles sent across of all these different pump clips. There was dozens of beers on this picture.
It was brilliant.
And how are you coping with the increased costs of everything? Because obviously hops, malt, everything is going up.
There was 3 very straight decisions. You know, malt 3 years ago, was 250 quid a tonne. I think our last malt bill was £1,150 a tonne.
Crikey.
And they used to hold it for a year. Now they hold it for a week. So you've got to do something. We've had a price increase. We had a choice. You either hold your prices and don't make any money and risk going bankrupt. You put your prices up, which is what we've done, or you decrease or take out some of the quality you're putting into the beer. And we're not prepared to do that. So our prices went up. And we went up about 9%.
And I don't think that's a problem, to be honest, because for a lot of people who drink premium beers, which these are, you don't mind paying a few extra pence, whatever it is, really, because it's a hobby, isn't it? This is our hobby, drinking this stuff. We don't mind paying more, and people
I don't like you guys, but if I go into Leeds for a night out, where it costs a little bit more money to beers.
Yeah.
If I have a real good night out and have 8 pints, for example, 8 pints.
That's a very good night out, in fairness.
Yeah. say it's £1 more per pint. It's cost me £8 extra.
Yeah.
Am I going to spoil my night for £8?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
go to somewhere cheaper and drink inferior beer? No, I'm not.
And that £8 will have helped to keep those businesses whose beers you've bought in business.
And the pubs that are
selling them. Yeah.
Put that on and say, you know what, it is going to be £5 a pint, or it is going to be £4 a pint, or £6, depending what you're drinking.
Yeah.
I'd rather those pubs say, you know what, I'm going to do that, give people the choice, than go in and say, oh, well, that was too expensive, so you'll have to drink this because it's cheap.
I think there's a lot to be said for like that range you've just said there. I think a lot of people now will accept £4 to £6 a pint. I think for some of the beers that are out, because there's so many, you should be able to do that. I think until things pick up a bit more, if you start saying to someone it's £7 a pint and they're not at, say, a concert or somewhere where they're a captive audience and they don't have a say in the matter, that feels unreasonable. But I think the bracket you're talking about, that's what I think most people accept.
Well, I'm totally with you. I mean, I know just locally now, there's probably only 2 or 3 pubs you can get a pint under £4.
Doing well to still have them, to be fair.
Yeah, I think there's 2 or 3 locally. And get a decent pint, you know, a class of premium beer. And most of it's now £4, $4.20 for a pint of a normal 4% ale or whatever. And I think that's fine. It's what it is.
Our listeners in the south of England are thinking, crikey.
Yeah. The host, the co-host in the south is thinking crikey as well. Yeah. I'd love to see a pint of something decent, £4.20 these days.
Yeah. Well, we just done a swap with Portobello Brewing in London, and that was it.
Yeah, I bet that was eye-opening.
I was in Wales last week, and I saw somebody advertising. I know it's terrible, but it was John Smith's, and it was £2.70 a pint.
You thought it was overpriced?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, who wants that? But
they get in trouble now, aren't they?
No. I mean, we're in your camp there, but yeah, I mean, you get what you pay for to a certain extent, don't you?
Well, I think also that there's another way as well. Whoever's selling the beer to the pub that they can sell it for that price, or whether the pub's doing it for no profit. There's something not right there, is there? There's something doesn't add up, and it's not long term, is it?
Talking about long term is a nice little segue. So you're celebrating 20 years of Wensleydale Brewery.
20 years, but our 10th anniversary of the current ownership.
Exactly. So what does the future hold? That's the next question.
Well, I'm getting older, so it might not hold much for me. You never know. I'm not a young chicken anymore.
I think, given this conversation, I find that very hard to believe. You're just going to keep going with this, it seems.
You're not escaping Wensleydale, mate.
It doesn't
you're
feel
there,
like
you're there
it.
for life now.
I'm one of those people. I would, if I didn't love what they did and like the lads, I wouldn't be still there.
Yeah,
I really wouldn't. I work there because I like the lads, but because I've sold their beer and I really, really respect what they're trying to do, and I love the beers.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I wouldn't be there. So, I'll be there for a while, but I'm a salesman. If there's not any growth, I'm not enjoying myself.
There's no growth. You've failed. Yeah.
Well, it's true, though, isn't it? It's true, and the lads will continue to back us.
What is really lovely is that in the current climate, when we look on Twitter and Instagram, every couple of weeks there is another business in this industry failing. And here you are, full of good news, because your business is doing really well, which just shows you that a business that is run well, even given the current climate, can do well.
Do you think that's the same with pretty much everywhere? I mean,
it is.
You go into pubs and you know you'll be a trader. You will walk into pubs sometime and just say, how is this keeping going?
Yep.
And then you'll go into others and say, why is everybody doing this?
Yes, yep.
But everybody has their own reasons. Sometimes it'll be because they can't afford to pay this back, so they can't get another van, so this one keeps breaking down, so let customers down. There's always other reasons behind it. All you can do is manage your own and just hope you're doing the right thing.
Well, what you're doing now is certainly working, and hopefully people who've been listening will be wanting to know where they can get your beers.
Just go online, Wensleydale Brewery, Google us, you'll find us. We will deliver to your door. It's £6 delivery, no matter what quantity you buy. So if you buy a case of 12, it's £6. If you buy 5 cases of 12, it's £6. There are some local places around here that we sell to. We don't sell to the major supermarkets. It's just not us. It's not where we want to be, and it's not where we're trying to be. But we will sell to local supermarkets, smaller outlets like that, nice, good craft can shops and bottle shops. We'll do that. But go online, find us online, Google us, and also watch out for swaps that we do. We're doing some swaps with other great breweries around the country. Not all the time, and we won't make it too often, but there will be, so you might even see it on cast somewhere.
And do follow Wensleydale on Instagram, because you'll just be blown away by the amount of new beers coming out all the time.
Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter we're on, so you'll get us on any of those platforms.
How do, Crafty Dog here. Not long now till this year's Crafty Dogs Beer Festival. It will be on the 5th, 6th and 7th of May at King's Hall Winter Gardens in the beautiful spa town of Ilkley. Can't wait to see everybody there. We'll have fantastic independent breweries attending this year, plus gin bar, cider, fizz, and of course street food. We've got DJs, we've got cornhole. It would be great to see all the Daftaboutcraft listeners there this year. So visit the website craftydogevents.co.uk for tickets, and make sure that you're following me on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram to keep up with all the latest announcements about the event. Cheers. See you there.
Right, it's time to speak to the brewer's wife now on Daftaboutcraft. Now, the brewer's wife is Sam, one half of the Copper Beech Brewing Company in Worcestershire. Welcome to the podcast, Sam.
Hello.
How's it going?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you.
Well, this is Brewer's Wife Chat with a Difference, because we've actually got some beer involved this time.
Yeah, I thought I'd infringe on the rest of the podcast and get in on the drinking.
Well, why not? Now, what have we got?
Well, obviously there's a very extra special reason why we're doing this, isn't there? So...
This is like indulgent in a way, this one, isn't it?
A bit self-indulgent, a bit, blowing our own trumpets.
But
hey, if you're not going to blow your own trumpet, who's going to blow... No.
We have got a beer called Gloop.
Gloop. So hopefully your avid listeners will have heard about this beer before, because it is the collab that you did with Copper Beech and the Oil Basin in Worcester.
Now, this collab came about because me and Dan went over to the Oil Basin to pick up some fermenters, and they were filled with this horrible liquid. So we thought we'd make a beer in memory of the gloop. I had this on tap in the oil basin. I persuaded about a dozen other people in the oil basin at the time to drink it as well. One guy was telling me what a terrible name it was.
We've had a few comments on the name, I'm not going to lie. Especially when we do the markets and people come up and have a little look at the cans and they pick it up and you see people read it and they go, gloop.
Yeah, but it's a good talking point though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting when you're doing them locally because obviously people have heard of the oil basin and so you sort of tell the story and then it all comes to life and makes a lot more sense and people really kind of like buy into it a bit more.
Now, you have had this before, haven't you?
Yeah, I've only had it literally straight out of the tank. I think that was even before it was kegged. And then I got an underfill on the day it was canned that Dan brings them home and says, I'll try this.
So this is your first proper can of gloop.
Yeah.
Now, I said to you before we started recording, what if you don't like it very much? And she said, I can fake it, it's all right.
Then I did think, imagine if I did sip it and go, ooh.
Anyway, you have sipped it. What do you think?
I have sipped it. I think it's just a really sessionable pale.
Yeah.
I think you sometimes look for things to give you big punches of this or big flavours of that, but actually the brief for this beer was a session pale that would sit really nicely in a bar that people could go back for more than one pint of, and it's just really easy drinking. And I think that's Dan's nailed it with the hop profile and the malt profile and everything.
It's not a huge, big, fat, fruity number.
No.
That blows your socks off, but it is very easy to drink, isn't it? I think that night when I went to the oil base and we probably had 4 or 5 pints of it, and it is really easy to drink.
It's kind of got all of the markers of a decent pale, hasn't it? It's got a nice level of carbonation, nice undertone of bitterness. It's got that citrus flavour working through coming from the hops. It's got that nice hoppy aroma. It's probably not a beer that you're going to go, that's the best beer I've ever drank.
Yeah, exactly. I have this conversation with Dave a lot. Every beer can't be like that.
No.
Because if every beer was, there's no room
exactly
for just a normal, easy drinking beer, is there?
But is that even the mark of a really good beer? Like, I think it's always good to have a staple beer that you could walk into somewhere and go, oh, I know that beer's good. I'm going to have one of them because it's a really easy drinking beer. And I think that's exactly what Gloop is.
And what were the hops in this?
So this is Eldorado, Citra, Comet and Talus. So just lots of nice grapefruity, citrusy blends, which is what gives it that kind of element of sharpness and citrus notes to the flavour.
It's a little bit fruity up front. And like you said, there's an underlying bitterness throughout the whole thing. It doesn't tail off to nothing. That flavour is there with you all throughout. And it's just really easy to drink.
Yeah. The flavour does last, I think.
Yeah, it does.
On the palate, yeah, for sure.
I've done a good job with this beer. I've done a really good job.
Tell us about the brew day then. How was that the first time you've experienced like a brew day in that capacity?
I think it probably is, I mean, I've been at breweries when they're brewing, but you don't really get in, you just watch, don't you? But this is our first collab, hopefully first of many. What did I do?
Did you get hands-on?
I did do a fair bit of watching as well on this occasion too. Took lots of pictures, little videos.
Yeah.
And Patch from the oil basin, he was obviously there as well. He got some beers out of his van at one point, and we drank those while you were watching, Dan.
Why am I not surprised?
Then I think he got some more beers out.
And that's where it all gets a bit blurry.
No, I'm not. He did get beers out of the van. No, I mean, we didn't do a great deal. We were just sort of talking about beer and watching what Dan was doing, really. It's hard because a brewer has his ways of doing things, and he's not gonna want to let a couple of Herberts or Oiks come in and start mixing it all up and doing
That's
it wrong.
just brew though.
Well, he does, yeah, he does.
But you've met Dan, yeah.
But Dan's Dan, isn't he? I'm not saying he's a control freak.
Well, you don't have to say that.
But what is interesting is that nearly every brewer will say, well, I am a little bit of a control freak. That's where collabs are quite difficult to become hands-on when you're dealing with people who like to be in control of everything because, one wrong move and I might have done something to upset Dan's processes and the way he wants it to be.
When you're drinking a beer and it kind of develops down the glass.
Yes.
I'm getting a bit of almost like pineapple now.
Yeah.
Do you get that?
Yes. It's a sort of a little bit deceptive in a way, this beer. I noticed this when I was having a few pints of it. It starts off, yeah. And then some other flavours do come in
It's
further
almost
down.
like it develops a complexity as you go along. Whereas I find a lot of beers are the opposite way around. On the first taste, you get hit with everything, and then down the glass, it kind of peters off a little bit, doesn't it? Because you don't get that huge hit. Whereas, I think actually now I'm drinking this, it's almost getting more interesting.
It sounds like I need to take up brewing full time if I can make something this good.
Well, absolutely. Why not?
So you've sold this beer on some of your markets that you do.
Yeah.
Any sort of feedback from people?
Yeah, obviously we look at Untapped a lot these days.
We've got a great Untapped story in a few minutes.
And it's been getting good feedback. I think it is because it's doing everything you want it to do for a pale ale. So I don't think there's too much you can mark it down for, in essence. And like I said, we knew it's not going to come in with the 5s because what beer does. But it's getting kind of like steady, solid 4s, which is really good. Yeah, we'll take that every day.
These market stalls are sort of more and more important to the business. It's your chance to sort of get out there amongst the people. And also, what Dan's just started doing is giving potential customers samples as well of the beer.
The markets are like not a long-term plan, but they're a really good short-term plan for income and also for exposure, just getting out to as many people as possible. And the tasters thing is something that we sort of thought about doing, but logistically with cans and stuff, you don't want to be doing it with cans. And he's found a way of doing it anyway, being able to offer some samples to people. And he said it's just made it a lot more engaging. He doesn't stop all day. People are a lot more likely. I think there's almost like a guilt if you try something. You kind of feel like you have to buy it.
It's hard, isn't it, to go up to somebody selling beer, try their beer and say,
and then go, I'm all right.
I'm going now.
Although our mate on Untapped did do that, didn't it?
Well, he's no mate. We don't know who this person is.
No, friend of mine. He was rating some beers. Like I'm pretty sure Amstel's was one of the ones on his Untapped. So
I suppose that got 5, didn't it?
No, it didn't. His average score was 2.7 something.
If you're drinking beer and you're rating it consistently, this guy's average mark was 2.75. I think you need to find yourself a new hobby, really.
You don't like beer if your average rating's 2.75.
I can't have that.
You don't like beer, as far as I'm concerned. Definitely didn't like ours.
Well, no, didn't like yours. Yeah, go on. So what happened to this guy?
So Dan's obviously, this is a new thing, doing the tasters, and he's really positive about it. It's going really well. People are really loving the beer, and it's leading to more sales, I think. And then he goes, earlier, he sends a picture, a screenshot of Untapped saying, this guy's just been and tried the beer and rated it on Untapped 2 seconds later. In fairness to him, he did put that it was a taster, and I didn't realise that was an option on Untapped.
Yeah, it is an option, yeah.
But he'd rated it, I can't even remember what it was. Was it Birdie? He'd rated Birdie 2.25. But no comments or anything. No, like... But then when you do look at the person's profile and you see what they're drinking and what they're rating, you think, I genuinely was like, this person doesn't like beer.
I mean, I have checked in on Untapped tasters of things, but I'm pretty sure that if I had just met the person who made this beer and talked to him...
He might think twice.
I would find it very difficult to then check in his beer with such a mediocre mark. I mean, just one, don't check it in. It's not going to kill you if you have one less check-in, especially when your check-ins are Amstel and John Smith's or whatever it is.
He did give Common Ground a slightly higher mark.
Oh, hold on a minute. So he checked in more than one beer?
Yeah, he checked in a couple, because when we were having this conversation...
I didn't know. I only thought he checked in one.
I don't know how many tasters Dan had on, but...
this gets worse.
Yeah, he checked in... I think he tried everything and checked them all and didn't buy anything, just checked them all in. Oh, wow. So when we were speaking about it and I had a look and I was looking at his profile, I noticed that Common Ground popped up and he did give that a 3 and it did earn him the Photogenic Brew Level 7 badge.
Well, that's the main thing, isn't it? It's weird though, isn't it? Often Dan will be next to, say, somebody selling cheese or chutney or something. But if somebody tries a bit of chutney on a cracker and doesn't like it, they don't go on to unchutneyed and check it in, do they?
Unchutneyed?
But do you know what I mean?
Can we please make that a thing?
There is no instant feedback.
Yeah, no, you're
industries.
Absolutely right. But also saying that, if you ate a chutney at a stall, would you be inclined to just say you didn't like it there and then to the person's face?
That's true, maybe.
Because I feel like if I didn't like a chutney, I'd be like, oh no, that one's not for me.
Not for me. That's what I would say.
Yeah,
it's not for me.
That's not for me. I'll try this one.
Yeah. Also, can you really effectively and properly rate a beer if you've had a thimbleful?
I was just about to say that. Like, literally what have I just said about this beer? it tasted completely different on mouthful 1 to how it does halfway down the glass now.
Yeah.
I'm getting so much more flavour from it.
Yeah.
Luckily, we don't get that many bad ratings, but when you get the odd one that's like a 2 or a 2.5 or whatever, I think it did used to have much more of an impact on him than it does now. I think he can see it a bit more for what it is now, and that not everybody on there knows what they're talking about. But even if they do, it's still a matter of personal taste.
Yeah.
So I think he has got a bit of a thicker skin for it now, and we just make a bit of a joke of it.
I think most brewers over time just think, oh yeah, Untapped. It's useful to an extent, and then that's as far as it goes, really. It gives you an idea, a sense of what the feeling is out there.
Yeah. One of the markets that I did Worcester recently, and a couple came up and they were lovely, really lovely. And they were saying, we've had your beer before and really enjoyed it. And they'd bought it from X place, Y place, can't remember where they'd said now, but they'd had it in various places. And then they said, have you got any new ones? So I was telling them about the new ones. They said, let me just check my Untapped to see what I've had before. So that was quite interesting to kind of witness, because I never really thought about it in that way, that actually people do use it to track their own
definitely
beverages. And they want to know, they don't want to duplicate things. They do want to try something new.
I always think one of the worst things is if you're out and about and you have a beer, you think, I'll just check this in. And you get Untapped up and you go to check it in and you've already had it.
But you don't remember it.
And you don't, one, you haven't even remembered you had it before. But two, then you think, damn, I've just wasted whatever it cost on this beer and I've already had it before. Which is ridiculous, really. But we just get in, it's a bit like train spotting, really. You just want the next number, and in this case, the next beer. Just because somebody says something is not very good or something goes wrong on their experience of it and they rate it badly, it doesn't mean the next person will.
Do you, when you book a holiday or you book a restaurant, do you look at the reviews?
I used to, but now, to be honest, you never know whether these people have got a grievance with somebody and there's bad reviews been left on purpose. You never know.
That's very true.
You never
and
know
actually,
the backstories.
That happened to me. A salon that I used to work for, a girl came for a trial day and she didn't get employed, and she went home and left a bad review on the Google page or whatever it was, Google reviews, under her boyfriend's name, which was really daft because it was very easy to trace it once we'd found that out.
Well, you see sometimes, if you read the product reviews on Amazon, and that is something I do quite a bit, usually just for the entertainment value, but you'll have a product that's got loads of 5-star reviews and then there'll be a 1-star review because it got delivered late, or well, that's nothing to do with the product.
You do have to read into it a little bit, don't you?
I don't know why people cannot get their head around that. That's nothing to do with the product.
Or it didn't turn up. I love that. It's got a 1-star because it never turned up. You're rating the product, not the fact that you never received it.
Or you're not rating Amazon. You're rating the product you got from Amazon.
Yeah.
But all of this does apply to beer as well, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely. Because like we said, we are a society that loves to share our opinion.
Now, we'd love you to try this beer, listeners. So Sam's got an offer for you if you do want to try it.
Yes, please take advantage of a special Daftaboutcraft listener offer. If you head over to our website, www.copperbeachbrewco.co.uk, and enter the code DAC-free delivery, you will be able to get free delivery nationwide on orders over £30. Obviously, if you are local to us and this offer isn't really going to do you any good, please get in touch with us and we'll give you a separate offer to get a little bit of money off your order.
How about that? So if you head over to the Copper Beach website, you can get Gloop in your basket, and there's at least half a dozen other beers on the website at the moment, isn't there?
I think so, yeah. We've got Common Ground is new and it's absolutely fantastic, if I do say so myself. I think Birdie, NYC, Dog Days are all available at the moment, so yeah.
Free delivery is yours. Go and pop some stuff in your basket. Well, thank you very much, Sam.
It's been fun to actually have a bit of beer while we talk.
On our last episode, we put the question out to you. Do we do a review of the Chubbles beers from Cloudwater? They're big hitting beers released every year, this time of year. And we thought our own personal view was, everybody's talking about these, we don't need to. So we put a poll on Instagram. And of course you said, yes, we've got to do them. So we're going to do them.
And now it's time for Hype or Tripe.
In fact, you voted about 65% in favour of giving these beers the hype or tripe treatment. There was one of you who didn't care either way. same sort of camp as us, and a few people who said no, but the majority said yes. So here we are. Dave and I have both got a can of Chubbles in front of us. There's 4 different ones. We've got 2 of the 4 between us.
So you've got the original.
Yes.
And I have, essentially, from the research we have done, the same beer, but the double dry hop version. So you've got Chubbles normal. I've got Chubbles. Can also get Chubbles, and Chubbles 53 degrees north, which is a lower ABV, that one.
Now, both of the beers we've got are brewed in conjunction with the Vale in America. And before we go anywhere, I would like to point out that 4 cans of this beer in front of me, if purchased from the Vale in America, cost $19. This can cost about £11, as I'm sure yours probably did as well, Dave.
I managed to get my can for under a tenner.
Oh, that's very good, because there's not many places selling them for that. But don't you think it's amazing, before we even open the beer, that it's so much cheaper in America?
I can't help but feel slightly shortchanged here. But as you say, if you want all 4 of the beers on this series, you're going to be close to 40 quid. It grates slightly, but I'm sure there is a logistical reason behind it.
It's not like the stuff in brewed at Cloudwater in Manchester has then been shipped over to America. You know, they've brewed it at the Vale and at Cloudwater.
We're just paying the bigger excise then.
Yeah, I guess that's what a lot of that is down to, yes. Mm. Right, so Dave, what did you tell me I should be getting from this 10% triple IPA?
The blurb says you should be getting a beer that smells and tastes mimic orange juice, but without the acidity. Yeah, okay.
It's the colour of, isn't it?
Yeah.
Massive, sticky, fruity nose on it. I mean, if I started the day with that, with my cornflakes, I think the day would end pretty quickly. That is hefty. Tastes nice. A little bit too sweet and sticky for me.
So I have the double dry hop version, and we should point out actually that we've got the same trio of hops: Galaxy, Eldorado, Citra.
Are you struggling to identify the hops in there through the alcohol?
I can get the Galaxy, that's for sure.
Do you? Okay.
Yes, I can get the Galaxy. I got a weird, and again, it's always a bit once you've read something like this, do you put it in your own mind? There is a bit of orange juice in the nose, and it's actually a bit like, for those of a certain vintage, would remember Sunny Delight.
Oh, goodness.
There's a little hint of that, and that to me is actually quite acidic. And it did say on your one, you should have yours without any acidity. Is there any acidity or sort of hot burn in your beer?
I think there is, yes.
I will say mine is definitely dry hopped. It's got a very bitter finish.
So with that dry hopping, your hop aroma should be boosted over what I'm getting.
I don't get big hop aromas.
You don't?
Not really, no. No, I'm sticking with my sort of orange juicy, vague orange juicy nose. It doesn't come out like it's a big tropical nose or anything like that at all. It is full. It's very full. It's very heavy. It is a bit sticky.
Yeah. Now, I found this before with Cloudwater tippers, is that they often are very fruity, very sticky. There's a bitter edge to mine.
Mine's hugely bitter.
All I can taste a few seconds after having a couple of mouthfuls is that lingering bitterness. And I think from what you see, your bitterness is enhanced even further than mine.
Yeah, and I'm someone who just historically likes DDH beers. I don't shy away from them. I do really enjoy them. Whether I enjoy them done over a tipper, I'm not quite sure.
We've talked quite a bit about whether you need triple IPAs these days, and they are becoming less and less popular. And in fact, the more I'm out and about, I'm seeing more and more beers at the other end of the ABV scale rather than this end. To be honest, the thought of now having to get through the best part of a pint of this, 440 mils, 3/4 of a pint, whatever it is, feels like a bit of a chore.
I agree that it's going to take me a while. There is a part of me that thinks, well, that's what it should be. You shouldn't be necking your 10% beer the same as you would a 5% beer. And we have said this before when we've had strong beers that do not taste of their ABV, and you sort of guzzle them down like they're lower, which is good in one way, but also perhaps a little bit detrimental. This I'm not going to be able to get rid of quickly. And I do think there is a little bit of hot burn there for me. Double dry hop, sure, but it doesn't need to just be bitter. you can do it with a subtlety. That's not hugely subtle.
I think we're in the same camp here.
To come into this with an open mind, I wouldn't have bought this if it wasn't for the podcast, that's for sure. If I'd seen it on tap somewhere, sure, I would have had a third just to try. The same as when I saw Putty, the tipper version of... Well, no, it wasn't a tipper, it was a normal version. I had that just to see.
I actually did succumb and have a little taster of the Putty with 3 T's tipper. And for me, that is better than this.
Okay, I was impressed with this year's Putty as well when I had it on tap. I still didn't need a can of it. I was fine with that. But when I actually sampled some, I thought, okay, this isn't a bad one this year. I don't love this. I see it's like they've all got really good scores on Untapped. They will do. It sort of is natural. I've had a lot better beers than this recently. Even stronger ones as well. I've had a couple of stronger beers of late, which isn't something I do too often now. And they've been better than this as well.
Do you think because this obviously is a hype beer, you go on forums, you go on Untapped, everybody's talking about it, all the stockists have got this beer, do you think people get carried away with that hype factor and then rate it accordingly on Untapped? We were earlier on in the podcast talking to the brewer's wife about Untapped and how it works and the way people score. But I wonder if at the top end of the scale, the 4.5, 5 out of 5 end of Untapped, people are just saying, oh yeah, this is a great beer. It's Cloudwater. It's a big tipper. It's got to be a good score, even though it doesn't warrant it.
Yeah, potentially. I think people do get caught up in that and don't want to maybe look like they're standing out by saying they don't like something for some reason if everyone else in the room is saying it's great. Also, Untapped's very subjective. I notice sort of I know I'm generally a harsher scorer, but I notice my rating is creeping up because I think generally the quality of beers have crept up now. I think you struggle to get really bad now. There's a lot that is average, but the average is now going a bit higher, if that makes sense. There's a lot of average to good, and it's finding the ones that really stand out now, which is trickier. You can have a lot of decent beers, but then you can't necessarily remember them in 2 weeks' time.
Exactly, yeah. Will you remember this in 2 weeks' time?
I might remember it for its bitterness. It's stopping me in my tracks a little bit. The colour's great.
The colour is awesome. Colour. Yeah, the colour's the best bit for me. Do you remember last year's Chubbles?
No.
Nah, nor me.
It's one of those where I can't say it's tripe completely because it's not a badly brewed beer in a sense. It's a long way off hype for me, my one. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, by its very essence, it is a hype beer because everybody's talking about it, and it's not tripe because it's well made. But for us, bitterness is there. I wonder if this would be better in a few weeks' time.
Potentially, yeah.
Because what happens a lot with these beers is they're such hype beers is that people want to get them and drink them now. Better just put it in the cupboard for a couple of months, but more in the fridge for a couple of months, probably.
The other interesting thing to do would obviously be if you could get the American version of it and see how that stacks up.
Yeah, and that would be the ultimate test, wouldn't it?
Mm.
Well, I think we are agreed here that, are we glad we tried it? Don't know, really. Would I have it again, this incarnation, tasting like this? No. If I saw it on tap, and it is on tap in a lot of places, probably would have a third to see if it's better than this.
Yeah. That's it. You'd have the comparison now. I'm in exactly the same boat as you. And the thing I would say now, given the price of beers like this, when I am looking at beers, price becomes a factor sometimes because I'll see ones and you think, do I really want to pay £8-9 when I know I could get one for half that price or about £5.50 and I know it will be a nice beer? For the price these beers are, you could get 2, maybe even 3, depending on who you get, that I would enjoy more than that.
If you've had it, and there's a good chance you have, let us know what you think.
Yes, if you've had the other versions and we're missing out on those, do let us know. But especially if you've had original Chubbles or Chubbles, let us know what you think of them. As we've said before, craft beer, highly subjective. Everyone finds something different. Perhaps you've had it and absolutely loved it. And if you have, brilliant. I'm very glad. I'd love to know what you sort of thought of it.
Daft About Craft, the craft beer podcast.
Well, that's just about it for this episode of Daft About Craft. Many thanks for taking the time to listen to us. Our next episode will be out at the beginning of May. In the meantime, why don't you pop along to the website of our brand new sponsor, hopsathome.co.uk, and pop our special Daft About Craft box in your basket. Use the code DaftAboutCraft12 and you can get free postage, 12 beers delivered to your door from Hops at Home for just £50.